So when it comes to competitive shooters, I've loved competitive shooters for about, I'd say 8 years of my life. But that's changed pretty recently too, actually. In the last 4 months, I really haven't played, any competitive shooters like, say, Call of Duty, which Call of Duty has been a series I've loved since I was like, 7 or 8. And, it was what got me into competitive shooters. And now I just, don't like it as much anymore, which is just interesting to think about. A genre where I just kind of lost complete interest, just not really out of nowhere, just over time, I just completely lost interest in the competitive scene of these games. And I think that's for a lot of different reasons that have just kind of collected over time to a point where I've just kind of lost any reason to really play these games. And I think one of the first reasons for that is just because developers have started to care more about the money that they gain more than the amount of output and content they really put into their games. You see, a lot of games nowadays, especially Call of Duty, which is probably the biggest offender of this, release with a pretty small amount of content and slowly drip feed us more content over time, which it gets really boring waiting for new content, I'll say. And why can't we just get all this, most of this content at launch, and then get this in DLCs instead of having all these battle passes, just all the cosmetic stuff? Why do they focus so much on that instead of putting more quality into their games? And sure, you can take in the idea that game studios, they get more money by doing the cosmetic stuff while still being able to put out these free updates that everyone gets so that it doesn't complicate the online services of the game per se. But people nowadays have been saying that they would much rather, pay for these 4 DLCs like the older Call of Duty, say like Black Ops 1, where it was 4 or 5 different DLCs that they did over time that eventually, created a full game. Sure, and the base game already had, quite a lot of content. So these DLCs just added more quality and quantity at the same time, instead of having these free updates that are of low quality and usually are just remasters or remakes of older maps. I'd also argue that another reason that I've kind of fell out with these competitive first-person shooters is that I've kind of completely changed my mindset of what type of games I like. You see, there's games like, say, Amori, which are, completely different from what I used to play, but Amori quickly became my favorite game of all time. If you haven't played it, you should totally go play it. But I think my type of game that I enjoy has changed more from a competitive style to more of an experience style. Games like, Amori, Undertale, stuff like that, or just really these bigger scale games in general, which I'll go into more in depth on that later. But these experience-based games feel like they accomplish a lot more than what these competitive shooters do nowadays. And I think part of why I've changed the type of game that I like is because as a person in general, I think I've genuinely matured a lot more, and I kind of understand of what a lot of other people feel when it comes to, stuff like, I guess, depression per se, which I'm not going to get into that much, but I completely understand it now, like, as someone who may have gone through it, not clinically, not officially, but, it's really interesting. It's just, as I've matured, I've grown to like these games that aren't competitive. They're just more as meant to be an experience, and, especially Amori, fucking love that game. Genuinely the first game that actually made me cry. So back to rounding this subject around first-person shooters again. When it comes to experience-type first-person shooters, when I say that, I mean these, large-scale battles, say, Battlefield, or more recently, BattleBit, which allow for these giant, large-scale fights that they look so cool. in action, and you can't get that from other games like Call of Duty, because, I mean, they're more competitive. And they've tried, Call of Duty has tried with stuff like Ground War, but, you know, it never really works. No one ever really cares about those game modes, because, well, they're just not made well. And another first-person shooter we can talk, like another type we can talk about here, is it's still kind of an experience, but in a much different way. Games like Ultra Kill and Doom Eternal, per se. These two are types of games where they take time to learn, and while you're going to suck at the game at first, you eventually get better and better and better at it. And that's what I love about Doom Eternal and Ultra Kill. They are games that you learn over time and start to master the mechanics as you continue to play. And, I mean, even with 30 hours on Ultra Kill, I'm still nowhere near how skilled some of these high-level players are, but I feel like I make progress. So every time I play Ultra Kill, I feel like I'm making progress on my skill level, and it feels so fun and so satisfying to actually feel this sense of progress, sense that I'm actually, you know, getting better at a game, not just doing the same thing over and over again, but learning these new combos and these new, you know, mechanics that are just so well fleshed out. I think another thing about these older competitive shooters, like the older Call of Duty games per se, is that I don't know what it was, but they had this certain, you know, special charm to them. Not like they were trying to be the best looking game out there like they are doing now, but they had this certain charm to them that just, it felt different back then. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like a lot of people know what I mean. Like, back then, it just felt like there was a lot more effort and a lot more scale put into these games. These maps with so many cool details to, like, the campaign per se. And while this is not really part of the competitive Call of Duty scene, Zombies was always a really cool addition to the game that, you know, they would do as a side thing. And that was always so fun. It was a refresher from playing multiplayer all the time. And while I'm not saying that the new Zombies games suck, they also don't have this same charm that the older games had. The older games had these map designs that were just so unique to every map. Maybe not Black Ops 4, but Black Ops 1, 2, and 3, and World at War, of course. All four of them have unique map designs that they just felt like they fit. But with Cold War, and especially Vanguard, the zombie maps don't really feel like they have this same type of, you know, effort put into them. I mean, some of the maps are just reused. I'm pretty sure Forsaken is just a reused map from the campaign. And, I mean, Forsaken honestly sucks, to be honest, from the little bit I've played. But Black Ops Cold War, like, it felt like it had a lot less effort put into the maps, and while I still liked it, I totally didn't like it compared to Black Ops 1 and 2. It was a lot different than I thought it would be. But, I mean, as I said, I still liked it, but it was, one, a lot easier. The skill gap that Zombies once had was kind of completely ripped from it, no longer making it as, per se, competitive, which, I mean, isn't really the right word for Zombies, but you know what I mean. And I think the same statement about multiplayer can be said in terms of the map ideology. The maps in the older games had a lot of, you know, they just were very iconic and very recognizable. So much so that the newer games very often have to steal these older maps just to stay relevant. I mean, Modern Warfare 2 has had to add Dome and all these other maps. And I mean, sure, it's cool to see all of these remastered maps. It's kind of sad at the same time to see that these same devs that made such iconic maps all those years ago can't seem to make those same iconic maps anymore. They can't put in the same amount of energy they put in back then to make these great, amazing maps that flowed so well with Call of Duty's gameplay. It's just interesting to see that they can't pull that off anymore. Now, do I think that competitive first-person shooters are dying? Absolutely fucking not. There is always going to be a group of people who stand by these games, even if they think it's, you know, like, horrible, their systems and stuff and everything, they will stick by it because, well, they like competitive games. This is true for stuff like, Valorant, or just Call of Duty in general, especially. And like that's really the biggest example I can think of, and that's the one I've played the most. But I mean, like, there's nothing we can really do to stop it. I mean, competitive shooters are going to keep growing. I mean, we have CSGO 2 releasing in summer this year. We have whatever the next fucking Call of Duty is. Whatever other updates for stuff like Overwatch 2 and whatever 2 would be releasing also. But, there's not really much we can do. I mean, there's always going to be people who are going to give all their money to these companies, even if they use such predatory practices nowadays, instead of, just the DLC system that they used, which I don't know why they don't use it anymore. I mean, I kind of do. They make more money from cosmetics. But still, does cosmetics make it to where they put so much less effort into the game, and it's just kind of sad to see that. I don't really know if this is the case for stuff like CSGO or Valorant because, well, I don't really play those competitive shooters. I played a little bit of the original Overwatch, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was pretty fun, but, I didn't, get too invested into it like I ever do with Call of Duty. But, I haven't played Call of Duty in, I'd say somewhere 4 months now, and, comparing my last few games with the Call of Duty franchise and comparing hours, with Modern Warfare 2019, I dumped about, I think, 20 days in total of gameplay. With Black Ops Cold War, I dumped another 10, 12 days or so. With Vanguard, I believe I only put in about 2 days worth of gameplay. And for Modern Warfare 2, well, 2022, I put in maybe I'd say 2.5 days of gameplay, and then I haven't played in 4 months, of course. But yeah, it's really just a loss of interest in these competitive shooters, which, is kind of sad. And, I'm probably going to make another video ranting about Call of Duty in specific, because I know a lot of this video was directed to Call of Duty, and I have a lot of stuff that I don't like about Call of Duty nowadays. As a pretty long-time fan, 8 years, as I said. And for most of that time, I should mention, I was an Xbox 360 player. So I was kind of stuck playing Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. And, even with that being the case, and running into hackers every so often, I still found those games to be really fun. Even though they weren't updated anymore or anything like that, they had so much content in them that I could stay enjoying them for, days on end. And, I can't really find anything like that anymore. And it's just kind of, sad to see that. As I mentioned earlier, I've kind of changed what kind of genre I like, more than just beyond the first-person shooter genre. I've branched out into stuff like, Amori, Undertale, in the past couple of years. Some other open world games too. They were mostly the only open world game that I really, finished. Well, two of them I'd say, because if Amori counts, then mostly two. One of them is Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which, I mean, it's a completely different type of game from a competitive game, like Call of Duty. But, I mean, that's kind of the point, too. It's a different type of game than, what I used to play. And, there's a lot of reasons why I've, liked these games. They allow for more strategy, per se. And then Amori, of course, it allows for strategy in its fights, for sure. But I more or less love Amori just because, the story. It's, amazing. If you've played it, you know. And I think that's about it for what I wanted to really, cover in this video. This is the first time I've done a type of video, like this. And, I hope y'all kind of like this content, because, it's definitely pretty fun to just kind of, talk and really just talk about what I think about certain subjects, and there's a lot of things I want to do this with. kind of like talk about a movie, Call of Duty, that kind of stuff, and just kind of nostalgia too, even in the future possibly. And I mean, I could totally see this channel going in the path of doing videos more styled like this. And I mean, the only issue I see with styling my content like this is just kind of possibly just running out of stuff to talk about, which, I mean, it would take a while for that to happen, I think. Like, there's quite a lot of things I could talk about for sure. But yeah, this is kind of just, like, the content I want to start doing, I guess. Somewhat higher quality. I kind of want to do, you've seen my other videos that are, like, you know, these more fast-paced, kind of meme videos or whatever. I want to continue doing those, but I want to do this as, like, you know, my main content. Like, those other videos, they are fun to do, but they definitely take a lot longer, I'd say. Because for these commentary videos, I mean, all I really have to do, right, is just get some gameplay of a game, and then, you know, just voice over it, and just cut out, you know, any excess parts that are in there. Anyways, I think that's it for this. Peace out, y'all.